To understand Venezuela's oil story, you first have to clear up one big misconception. For much of the 20th century, Venezuela's oil industry was not controlled by one foreign country, and it was not targeted specifically by the United States. Instead, Venezuela's oil was dominated by foreign companies from all over the world, operating under the same rules. Yes, American companies were deeply involved. Firms like Creole Petroleum, owned by Standard Oil of New Jersey, along with Gulf Oil, Mobil, and Texaco, played major roles in drilling and exports, but they were far from alone. European companies were just powerful. Shell, the British-Dutch oil giant, was one of the largest operators in Venezuela. Other European firms invested heavily in production, refining, and export infrastructure. No matter the flag, they all operated under the same legal system. Those operations were based on state-granted concessions. These concessions gave foreign companies the right to drill, refine, and export oil, but they did not give them ownership. The land remained Venezuelan. The oil beneath the ground remained Venezuelan. What foreign firm owned was access and the profit that came with it. After World War II, Venezuela began to rethink this arrangement. And it didn't do it selective. It didn't target Americans or Europeans individually. It changed the rules across the board. In the 1940s, Venezuela imposed a 50-50 profit split on foreign oil companies. Half for the companies, half for the Venezuelan state. Americans, European, everyone. This move was not radical at the time. In fact, it was part of the global trend. Mexico had already nationalized its oil industry in 1938. Iran followed in 1951. Iraq and Kuwait did the same in the 1970s. Saudi Arabia gradually took control of Aramco, completing the process in the 1980s. Oil-producing nations everywhere were asserting control over their natural resources. Venezuela was not an outlier. It was keeping pace with the world. By the 1960s, Venezuela made its position crystal clear. The issue was not which country a company came from. The issue was foreign control itself. That path led directly to 1976. Under a democratic government, long before Hugo Chavez and long before Nicolas Maduro, Venezuela ended all oil concessions and created its national oil company, PDVSA. American companies lost control, British companies lost control, Dutch companies lost control, everyone lost control. At the same time, under the same law. This was not a sudden seizure. It was a legal process passed domestically and recognized internationally. Creole Petroleum became Lagove, Shell's operation became Maraven, Gulf Oil became Meneven. The oil field stayed the same, the infrastructure stayed the same, the workforce stayed the same. What changed was ownership and control. And here is the key nuance many people miss. The companies were compensated, not generously, but by the standard of the 1970s fairly. They were paid for equipment, refineries, pipelines, and facilities they had built. They were not paid for decades of future profit they had expected. And those terms were accepted. There were no sanctions, no international rulings declaring the nationalization illegal. At the time, oil nationalization did not feel like a threat to the United States. But fast forward to the 2000s and the picture changed dramatically. Under President Hugo Chavez, relations between Venezuela and Washington collapsed. Contracts were rewritten. Some foreign companies accepted the new terms and continued operating. Others, including ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips, refused to take Venezuela to international arbitration. Political pressure from the United States increased. Diplomatic ties weakened. Venezuela began looking elsewhere for support. And that's when China entered the picture. China did not move in by taking oil fields or running refineries. Instead, it became Venezuela's financier, through massive oil for loan agreements. China lent Venezuela tens of billions of dollars. Repayment did not come in cash, it came in oil. This shifted the Venezuelan crude away from US markets and toward Asia. It weakened American leverage and tied Venezuela's survival to Chinese financing. There was no single moment of theft, no dramatic seizure. What happened instead was a slow breakdown of relationship driven by politics, money, and shifting global power. Oil is still at the center of this story, but it's not the only resources that matters. Minerals like coltan used in advanced electronics and military technology raise the stakes even higher. Control over these resources now shapes global supply chain and geopolitical influence. This story is not about two countries. It's about changing world order where producers, financiers, and massive consumer markets compete for leverage, where power no longer flows in just one direction, and where energy is no longer just fuel, but a strategy. That's the real story behind Venezuela's oil. Write your comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Morning America.